This is the Sonos Beam Gen 2, which takes everything I loved about the original. Great sound, a space-friendly form factor, and Sonos' ecosystem app, albeit a troubled one, and adds virtual, key point virtual, Dolby Atmos, which is the current gold standard for environmental-based object surround sound. While I wouldn't say that this upgrade is essential for those that have the previous generation of the Sonos Beam, if you want to get in on object-based surround sound, at a budget-friendly price point, the Sonos Beam Gen 2 might just be for you. As a quick primer for those uninitiated with Dolby Atmos, this sound technology uses object-oriented multi-channel audio to surround you with sound when playing supported Atmos-enabled content. Now, a big part of that is the verticality of the sound, which adds a key element to the immersive nature of how the sound envelops you. Some home theater soundbars like this Beam Gen 2 utilize sound algorithms and well-tuned drivers to add this dimensionality to the soundstage. These won't, in theory, ever replace physical up, down, and side-firing speakers, but in general, this iteration of the Beam does well with this virtualized version of Atmos. And at the retail price of $449, which is cheaper during Black Friday sales, the new Beam is $50 pricier than the original at launch, but I tend to believe that price increase is warranted with the inclusion of HDMI eARC and Atmos capabilities. In fact, it'll be tough to find a better standalone soundbar under $500 with all of the Beam Gen 2's credentials in its resume. Despite its small stature and compact footprint, the Sonos Beam 2 offers a solid array of features and ways to get connected, just like the first Beam. Like most Sonos products, with the exception of the Sonos Roam, the latest Beam is unfortunately not Bluetooth compatible, requiring instead that you stream over your home Wi-Fi. Sonos' app allows for easy control of music streaming, as well as the bar itself, but you can also bypass the app via the Spotify Connect and AirPlay 2 if that is your preference. Like the original Beam, the Beam Gen 2 is available in white or black finishes. Sonos says it engineered the Beam's new polycarbonate grille to be, and I quote, precisely perforated, whatever the heck that means. But beyond helping elucidate its acoustic efforts, it also makes for a handsome product. Around the back, you'll find a simple array of connectivity options in the Beam's cable cubby area, typical power, Ethernet, HDMI ARC, eARC, as well as a sync button for linking up additional Sonos products. One thing missing here is a spare HDMI port. That means there's no way to plug in an outboard device directly, and the Beam will hog your TV's HDMI ARC or HDMI eARC port without making up for it. That said, the Beam 2's minimalist styling is one of my favorite things about it, and quite frankly, Sonos' overall design sensibility as a whole has been great. You can tell Sonos design engineers have meticulously thought about the aesthetic and functionality of the form factor to suit as many tastes and setup as possible. It's the perfect height not to block the TV in many instances, not all, and it's available in colors that should blend seamlessly into any space you are looking to set it up in. Like other Sonos products, the Beam 2 is quite flexible. You can use the capacitive touch buttons on top of the bar to play, pause, activate voice assistant, change volume, or skip tracks in a playlist by swiping. Now with HDMI CEC, the consumer electronics control, it's easy enough to simplify the use to your TV remote for power and volume. But since you've got to download the Sonos app to set it up anyway, you'll find a myriad of ways to granularly control your Beam there as well. Now, once your Beam is connected to your Wi-Fi network, you'll find the Sonos app becomes a hub for a variety of ways to listen to music. Sonos Radio is available by default, but it's easy to link an account like Spotify for direct control or stream straight from Spotify over Spotify Connect. The app is also your control center for downloading updates for the bar, adding voice assistants, or running TruePlay, Sonos' sound calibration system. You can also control volume directly from the app and sync up your whole Sonos ecosystem to play sound throughout the house. While watching TV or movies, you'll be able to toggle a couple of TV-specific settings, such as night mode and speech enhancement, to dull invasive sounds, or like me, who needs it, to pump up the dialogue respectively. Everything works just as advertised, as is typical for most Sonos speaker products. And finally, voice assistant fans will be happy to know that the latest Beam retains its own built-in far-field microphone, allowing you to call up either Amazon A or your G Assistant. I can't say these words because my phones will start blaring. Gaining access to the Sonos app and its ecosystem means a lot more than accessing Sonos Radio or waving your phone around the room. The Sonos app also makes it easy to sync up with other Sonos speakers that you may already own and group them by room, such as living room or bedroom, to create multi-room audio, which is perfect for things like parties. You can also add speakers like the Sonos One, the Play One, as surrounds. all controlled by the app. Now, regarding the Beam 2's Atmos performance, there is an important distinction I need to make here between the Beam and soundbars like Sonos's Arc Ultra or the Sony a7000, which are not only larger, but also use physical drivers to bounce sound off your ceiling. These physical drivers arrayed within these larger soundbars help to create the immersive height element of Dolby Atmos and other 3D audio formats by firing the vertical sound signals up in order for them to then bounce down to the listener. Instead of utilizing up-firing drivers, employs virtualized Atmos through, and I quote from Sonos, time and frequency-based psychoacoustic techniques. Essentially, it uses enhanced software and algorithms to create virtualized immersion for Dolby Atmos content. And although its acoustics are largely virtualized, the Beam Gen 2 exhibits a robust audio profile featuring substantial bass relative to its compact size, clear dialogue, and a natural, appreciable reverb that imparts a rich and organic quality to sound effects, music, and dialogue. For me, the auditory experience achieves a three-dimensional quality, surpassing my initial expectations for a single-piece soundbar of this type of stature. While the Beam 2 may not attain the performance levels of multi-speaker Atmos configurations with discrete Atmos-specific speakers, or those with purpose-built Atmos drivers like the a7000 or the Arc Ultra, the Beam Gen 2 undeniably represents a commendable upgrade at such a small footprint. You will, however, need to utilize HDMI in order to leverage any Atmos-enabled content. So beware for those that have older televisions that can't leverage ARC or eARC. Optical hookups are inherently incapable of passing Dolby Atmos. As always, I fired up Dune and Mad Max Fury Road to truly put the Beam through its paces, both for more subdued scenes and all-out displays of bombast. So I swapped out my HTA7000 and my Klipsch home theater and began testing. My initial impression, the Beam punches well above its weight class. Now, it doesn't knock out the heavyweights, but it certainly keeps pace with them with some drawbacks. Separation was distinct if not broad scoping, and sound is impactful if not completely transporting. Surprisingly, the bass response, even without a distinct subwoofer, was pretty well represented, if not completely thunderous. I was really impressed with the Beam's handling of more subdued diegetic sounds like footsteps or off-screen movement. Again, given the Beam's form factor footprint, I was not expecting that level of nuance produced across the soundstage, so I was pleasantly surprised. Where the Beam loses some steam are during more cacophonous scenes where many loud things are occurring in the soundscape simultaneously. Those large sounds get muddled and the level of separation and vertical distinction loses a step, and in some cases largely non-existent. This is where I think the benefit of having physical up-firing and side-firing drivers really shines, and unfortunately, no amount of oral wizardry here can keep pace, at least not yet. While I heartily enjoy the expansive nature of the sound created by the Beam Gen 2's Atmos virtualization, I couldn't help but notice a distinct lack of height-based audio through much of the content that I watched. While the most optimal Atmos listening experiences require in-ceiling speakers firing down at the viewers, up-firing speakers bouncing sound down is the next best alternative. This vertical virtualization that the Beam 2 is employing, unfortunately, right now is not quite close enough yet to approximating the sound field created by either of those two previous methods. Even with up and down firing speakers in tow, however, height effects are often the most subtle aspect of the Atmos experience, and it can depend heavily on how the content was produced to leverage that dimensionality. So it's not surprising that the Beam, using phase array shifting and psychoacoustics to emulate Atmos as it does, struggles with this difficult but integral part of the Atmos equation. If you want something with truly striking and pronounced overhead effects, you will need to invest in a more robust and, quite frankly, way more expensive surround sound solution to really delineate this dimension of Atmos. One of the limitations the Beam 2 has that many higher-end soundbars don't, especially higher-end Dolby Atmos-enabled soundbars, are a lack of multiple HDMI inputs and an HDMI eARC connection. This is important not just so you don't lose an HDMI input on your TV, but also so the bar can directly decode high-resolution audio from a source device like a Blu-ray player or a current-gen gaming console that's plugged right in. If your TV is newer and equipped with an HDMI eARC port, which passes Atmos and other valuable audio formats unaltered and uncompressed directly to your sound system, you should have no problem getting top quality Atmos to your Beam. However, Not everyone has upgraded their TV in the last couple of years though. This means that how you can source Dolby Atmos enabled content is limited to what your TV is capable of. Now, this is likely to be a commonly encountered problem until HDMI eARC is ubiquitous on most TVs, but that'll take a few more years as TVs are not prone to breaking down or getting replaced by people regularly. And it would have been nice if Sonos added at least one input in there. This and other limitations will persist until you unfortunately upgrade your TV if it's too old to have an eARC. The good news is that having an HDMI eARC makes the latest Beam more flexible for the future of home theater. Just like the original, the Beam Gen 2 is a great product for a particular use case scenario. If you are looking to maintain a relatively small footprint for your home theater setup and you want to prioritize expansive Atmos-ish sound that doesn't quite reach the levels of audio distinction and separation that more expensive and footprint monopolizing setups can, then the Beam Gen 2 with a price tag under $500 is for you. I would say that the combination of Sonos' streamlined app, ease of Wi-Fi integration, clean design, and Beam's excellent acoustic performance, regardless of its middling Atmos representation, each play their part to create a real symphony of a soundbar. While it might not be perfect for everyone, the lack of an HDMI input may sting, this is still one of the best soundbars in this price range. When it comes to a great mix of compact design, cinematic immersion, and loads of flexible features, the Beam Gen 2 is an excellent option, especially if you're already all in on Sonos. Hit that like button and comment down below to help me with the algorithm if you found this helpful, and subscribe if you want to see more of these types of videos on my channel, and I will check you next time. Peace.